Hi, everybody. Are you looking for some free science fiction and fantasy to get you through this weekend? We've got you covered. Every Friday, us here at MetaStellar, we read the first few chapters of each of the top 5 free science fiction and fantasy books on Amazon. Amazon has a bestseller list just of free sci-fi and fiction books. The link to that bestseller list, by the way, is in the description box below. Now, today's top 5 list includes pirates, both the space and the ocean kind, as well as mages and mediums. But before we get to all that, hi everybody, welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV. I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. I want to thank editors Melody Friedenthal and E.S. Foster for helping out with today's review. And Emma is here with us today. Hi, Emma.
Hi.
All right, let's skip over all the other boring administrative stuff and get into today's books, starting with book number 5, and we're going to count down to book number 1. So stick around to the end. The first book is awesome. All right, number 5 is The Soul Seekers by D.G. Swank, the first of 3 books in the Soul Seekers, a paranormal romance series. The other books are $1 each, but they're both in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is where you pay $12 a month and you read all the books you want, kind of like a Netflix for books. And the author has been on our Free Friday list before. And Emma, what did you think of the book?
I really like this one. It wasn't too creepy like some of the, seasonal books that we've read lately. And this one kind of had some cozy vibes to it. So it starts off with Piper. She's this fake medium. She's just trying to get by. She's doing this as like a side business. And she also, we find out, lives close to where the mysterious Roanoke colony disappeared in North Carolina. So the book kind of talks a little bit about that. And apparently, the colony, like all of the people, it's just supposedly reappeared unscathed after about 400 years. And everyone's perfectly fine. They're still alive, and nobody really knows what to make of it. Piper thinks it's all a hoax. She thinks they're like, reenactors, that type of thing. So she doesn't also believe either that the medium stuff that she does is has any credibility to it. She's mostly just doing this because, as it turns out, her ex-boyfriend is also in the psychic business, and he ended up cheating her out of a lot of her inheritance after her father died. So she's kind of doing this for free just to spite him, which I think is really funny. But also, she thinks that her ex is ripping people off, talking about all this fancy equipment he has. But really, she just walks in, says a few things, and then leaves. So it's like, okay. Either way, it looks like they're both kind of doing the same thing, but I digress. It does seem, though, that she has a knack for getting certain details right. Because she'll be like walking around the house and she'll think, oh, this was so and so's favorite song on the piano. And it's almost like she has this gut feeling, and she's usually always right. So at the beginning of the story, Piper finishes up with a client talking about how her dead father is still there and everything, giving the client closure. But as she's leaving, a woman approaches her and says that there's danger and Piper must be prepared for whatever is coming. So the client then mentions that a neighbor of hers had just died, and the description of the dead neighbor matches exactly the woman that Piper encountered just a few moments ago. So the client didn't see her, it was just her. So it looks like Piper has seen a ghost, but she doesn't really want to believe that just yet. She's still a little skeptical. So when Piper gets home, her grandmother is there to meet her, and she wants to talk about Piper's father's will. So it turned out that both of her parents were murdered, and the man who killed them claimed that some group called the Guardians made him do it. We're not really sure what this means at this point, but apparently Piper's father also made so many strange demands in his will that her grandmother has doubts as to whether or not he was actually mentally competent and whether or not the will should stand. In addition, Piper's father's also made crazy accusations about her family's relation to the Roanoke colony, as mentioned earlier. And it's something that Piper doesn't want to have to deal with anything with. She already has to deal with dropping out of law school, not taking over her father's law firm, and also like her ex and the whole inheritance thing. So Piper then goes to meet another client, but this time her ex shows up, and they get into this altercation, but the client insists that Piper handle the job. So, despite not believing that she saw ghosts earlier, she steps inside the house and she's ready to encounter whoever arrives. So, like I was saying, this is the perfect amount of spookiness for me. It's not too like over the top. Some of the books that we read have been like, wow, what is that? And this is also kind of cozy in a way. It's like one of those where it's like the protagonist randomly sees ghosts. They don't really know what's going on. But then I also like the bent with the Roanoke colony, and I really enjoyed Piper as a character. So I think I might stick with this as part of like the whole spooky season that we got going on here. And if you like spooky mysteries that are also a little cozy, I recommend you check this one out.
All right, thanks. I do like cozy spooky mysteries. Well,
Yeah,
not
that
the
was like your
spooky.
thing.
Yeah, well, I like cozy magical mysteries. And as long as they're not too creepy. This
Yeah,
sounds like it wouldn't be too creepy. So, although the cover looks a little creepy.
it does. Yeah.
That's a creepy looking cover. That's not a cover of little cartoony like witch like you would get in the
Yeah.
cozy mystery kind of cover.
It also said it was paranormal romance. So I was like, okay, how much is there going to be paranormal and how much is there going to be romance, you know?
All right. Well, the next book is going to be something completely different. Um, Let me pull that up for you guys. There you go. And let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Book 4 on today's list is the Eternal Frontier box set by Andrew Melchiorri. And it's a box set of the first 3 books in the 5-book The Eternal Frontier, a space opera series. The other books are $5 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And the author has been on our Free Friday list before, and space operas are right now my favorite genre because I have just read several space operas back to back in the last few weeks. I'm talking an entire series of like 10 books each. So I still want more. So I just finished my last one. I'm totally ready for another one. So I was psyched to start reading this. So our protagonist's name is Tag, and he's a chief medical officer at some kind of exploratory ship that has a full crew and Marines on board. But it's not like the biggest ship. It's just like a smaller ship, and they're out somewhere exploring a new solar system. And Tag is in his laboratory growing neural tissue, and a colleague comes over and says, "Hey, stop working. We're approaching the planet." And Tag's like, "Oh, I'm really busy, but okay, fine. I'll go look at the planet." And then he goes out, looks at the planet with everybody. So all the crew that's not actually at work is hanging out near this big window or display screen or, viewport or something. And they're watching the planet, come into view, and it's this ice planet. And Tag is a little disappointed that he won't get to go down there because he's not part of the landing team. He's just going to wait up at the ship for everybody to bring samples back to him. And, he's kind of bored in his laboratory. He wants some excitement. And then another ship appears, like out of nowhere. Everyone's like panicking, freaking out. They sound the alert. Everyone has to go to battle stations. He runs to the medical lab, and um, things start exploding. They're boarded. Everybody is being shot and killed. He tries to go and help. He pulls in a wounded Marine into the medical bay, and starts working on her. And one of his subordinates runs out to try to get more people and bring them in. And then all the hatches slam shut. And the computer is going wonky, and he's trying to repair this Marine. She's really, really banged up. He puts her in a regeneration chamber, and then he tries to figure out what's going on. The computers are down, but some networks are still functional, so he's able to look at the cameras and see these pirates, whoever they are. He can't really tell, and they're killing everybody. Everybody's dead. Um, and then the lights go out and the regeneration chamber stops working. So he opens it up and he pulls the Marine out, and tries to use old school techniques to try to save her life. And then yellow smoke starts coming into the medical bay. So he drags the Marine away from the smoke. She's already wearing an emergency oxygen mask, so he grabs another one for himself, grabs a medical kit, and between the medical bay and his personal research laboratory, there's like an airlock or sterilization chamber that's airproof. It's so he drags her in there, and they go through this airlock into his research laboratory, and he goes back to work on patching up the Marine. He pulls up the cameras are still working, even though the computer's still out, and he sees that the yellow smoke is starting to clear out. So the ship's filters are working. So he starts thinking about what's going to happen next. He's the only one on the ship, except for this very wounded Marine. Everyone else is dead. If the captain was able to get a drone out, then they might get help within about 8 days. And then he finds a display that shows the location of his ship, and it looks like the pirates have changed their trajectory, and it's now heading for the sun, and it's in less than a day they're all going to burn up. So that was the opening couple chapters of the book. Very fast paced, very tense start. Not a lot of character development here, but it's a space opera. I'm really not expecting any. And I'm into it. I think I'll stick with this weekend. It's exactly my kind of thing.
Yeah, that
So
one actually sounds really interesting. I haven't read a whole lot of space opera, but this might be like a good place to start because if you were saying like this has all the hallmarks of a space opera.
no, if you want to start with the space opera, start with the best one, the Honor Harrington series by David Weber.
Okay, I'll write that down.
That, in fact, I just did a bunch of reviews about the best space operas with kick-ass women in them. And the Honor Harrington series is the best space opera, period, regardless of like what gender the protagonist is. And it's just like the main one in the field. That's the one is the Honor Harrington series. And the first one is called On Basilisk Station. And I've read all the books in it probably at least 2 or 3 times, probably more. They're great. All right, on to book number 3 on today's list. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see that. This is Skyborne Sentinel Court by Taylor Knight. It's the second of 5 books in the Skyborne epic fantasy series. The other books are $3 to $5 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited. And the last 3 books in the series are scheduled to be released later on this year, but they're all available for pre-order. This is the author's first time on our Free Friday list. And since this is the second book in the series, we're going to be talking about the first book so as not to give away any spoilers. Oh, and book 3 is out. Book 4 and 5 are available for pre-order. All right, so Emma read book 1 for us. So, Emma, what did you think?
I really like this one. Like I'm more of a fantasy person, I think, than a sci-fi person. So this one sounded really interesting to me. So the story opens with Elira. She's this young girl who lives on a farm with her mother. And it starts off really fast paced and tense because it starts off with her standing in her barn as it is burning down. So she's rushing around in time to save at least one of the livestock, and she finally gets home. She makes it out alive. She's unharmed, thankfully. But when she gets home, she finds that her mother is distraught. It has nothing to do with the barn. She didn't even know about the barn happening. Apparently, a letter from the Skyborne Academy has just arrived, and this means that Elira is recruited to it whether she likes it or not. So this girl's definitely not having a good day. It turns out that these students of Skyborn, they're all recruited for their special abilities or because of their noble lineage. So All students are trained in combat and they become soldiers to fight against the country's rival kingdom. So it's kind of like this country's military, but it's sort of forced. But Elira has no idea what special abilities she has. She's obviously not of noble blood because she's living in the country and her barn is just burned down, so she's got nothing left besides her mother. And her mother refuses to elaborate on why she could possibly have gotten this letter, because it seems that she knows something, but she's not willing to say. So after saying goodbye, Elira has to walk, so on foot, to the Skyborne Academy. She's invited inside, she finds her room, and then she enters this hall to be welcomed by the Grandmaster. She's also the immediate target of this group of bullies since she comes from a village, and it's immediately obvious by the clothes she's wearing. Luckily, another student comes to her defense, and it looks like she might have a friend there while she's trained in magic. So I will start by saying that I like the idea of this. I get the feeling that not everything is what it seems, and it does move very quickly. That was like the main thing when I was reading this. And I did actually notice a couple of typos when I was reading it. So it's like the copy editor and me going about like, oh, I noticed that. But with everything moving so fast, I didn't really feel like I had the chance to get to know the characters, and I didn't really know that much about the world, so I don't think I'm going to continue with this one, but who knows, with us eventually reviewing the second book and all, it might definitely change.
All right, now on to book number 2 on today's list, which has more pirates in it, but this is the old-fashioned Pirates of the Caribbean kind of pirates. The book is titled Caraway of the Sea by Madeline Burget, and this is a standalone fantasy novel, and it's the author's first time on our Free Friday list, and this is their only novel on Amazon. So I generally prefer books that are part of a series because I'm bad at names, and with a series, I get to follow the same characters all along. But when I opened this book, it said that it was the first book in the Phoenix Rising series. So there might be more. Something to keep an eye out for if you like this book. So Caraway is a young woman who's on a pirate ship. She's a fighter. She's good with her sword, and her brother is the captain. And the relationships are kind of really tense. When she and her brother first got became pirates, she was in disguise as a man, but now she just seems to be herself. And one of the sailors asks her to marry him. So her brother is paranoid that she's going to leave him and leave the ship, maybe go on shore and marry somebody, or God forbid, go off and be on another ship. So her brother seems like a slightly unsavory character, but also they're pirates. So they're all unsavory characters. So she tells the guy who wants to marry her to talk to her brother first. And before she can find out what happened with that conversation, there's a storm and someone is swept overboard. And the guy who swept overboard, the guy who asked her to marry him. And she does not suspect her brother at all, even though her brother was the only one who saw it happen. I, of course, immediately suspect the brother, because the brother comes off as a little creepy. And over the next couple of chapters, we learn more about Caraway and her relationships with the other pirates. She's devastated by the loss of this guy, more than anyone else on the ship. And we also get some flashbacks about a recent battle that the pirates had with some other pirates. And we learn that Caraway is really good with a sword. The book is moody and it's very atmospheric, and it really puts you inside this world. And there's a lot of swashbuckling and adventures and visits to brothels on, tropical islands and all the stuff that you expect in a pirate movie or a pirate book. So not quite my thing. And also I prefer my pirates to be in space rather than the high seas. But if you're a fan of pirate stories, this book is very readable, and the protagonist is a compelling character. So I do appreciate that very much. And so I would recommend it for people who like the genre. And before we go on to book number 1 on today's list, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. which is, and the list is missing a couple of people. Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure to get you next time. So all of us here at MetaStellar are volunteers, including Emma and myself, and all the money that's raised through the donations goes to pay for original fiction. We're currently in the middle of our fall submission cycle. So if you're a sci-fi or fantasy or horror writer, make a note of it. You've got until the end of the month to submit your story. And you can also join the channel. And of course, you can like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot as well. Or you can buy my books on Amazon. They're linked down below. And if you need an editor, Emma Foster is an editor and a book coach. So let's go on to book number 1 on today's list. It is a space opera. Yay! Panglor by Jeffrey Carver is the first of 6 books in the Star Rigger Universe space opera series. The other books are $2 to $6 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. So Melody Friedenthal read this for us, but she's not here. So Emma, can you tell us what Melody thought of this book?
So it seems like Melody had some mixed feelings about this one. It starts off with Panglor. He is a spaceship pilot. He has this like furry winged alien creature for a companion, so already it sounds pretty cool and quirky. And it starts off pretty fast-paced with him using this highly risky maneuver to travel to his destination, and he's really nervous about doing this. Thankfully, he survives, otherwise this would be a very short series, and he gets to his destination, a human-inhabited space station in a distant solar system. So he and his pet are decontaminated, he rents a room, he checks his messages, and he learns that he needs to meet some people who are apparently some very unsavory characters. So these people promise him that he could become the owner of his ship. It looks like he doesn't actually own it now, he's just the pilot, but he needs to do something illegal and dangerous for them. Namely, they want him to destroy a ship owned by a company that he hates. So if he refuses, he's going to be charged with theft and piracy. So there's even more pirates in this. And he can't think of a way out at this point. Plus, he really hates that company. I guess it's some sort of like big shot corporation, which, I think we can all relate to. And they apparently blacklisted him and left him destitute on an alien planet. So he's really looking out for revenge on this one. But then Panglor accidentally overhears a conversation where 2 people are threatening this teenage girl, calling her a witch, and he ends up interfering with the situation, and the girl starts following him around. Then we get this flashback about how Panglor had to survive after being marooned on that planet. So Melody says so far the plot is interesting. The writing is a bit purple at times. It gets like that purple prose. She also says that she's not really invested in the character of Panglor or what happens to him, but she says she might continue on with the story actually.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing in space operas. The very traditional kind of old school sci-fi purple prose,
Yeah.
a big lack of character development, not a lot of character arcs or, emotional depth in these books, but a lot of action. So I personally like them. But then again, I also like the last Fast and Furious movie, the one where they drove a car into space and rammed the space station. I thought that was fantastic. So, so it all depends on your personal preferences. That's my point. All right, so that was it for today's books. If you don't want to miss any free books on Fridays, subscribe to our channel. And we also have a newsletter that goes out every Friday afternoon, link in the description box below. And if you want to stick around for a little bit longer, here are a couple of other videos you can check out on our channel that YouTube thinks you might like. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.